scream thank you to all the Dirtomaniacs that support the show. If you want to get ad-free content and extra free content, you can go to patreon.com/eternaldirtles and support us. Proceeds go to editing the show, upgrading equipment, and helping us travel to events. What it do? Perfect. All right. So then I'll count off in 3, 2. Hello and welcome to Eternal Dirtles. I'm your host, Zach Clark. And with me this week, we have Rob Wilson from Buffalo Chicken Dip Legacy. Rob, how you doing, man?
Hey, Zach. Great to be back. Appreciate you having me.
Hell yeah. First off, congratulations on another successful Buffalo Chicken Dip event, man. It looked like everyone was having a real blast last weekend.
Yeah, thanks. I think this was a very unique event in kind of my planning, what we did and just some of the challenges that we faced. And yeah, I know some people like hearing about this stuff, and there's some people out there, over the years I've always said, if I can do it, so can you. And if my experiences can lessen someone else's pain in the future, I think, maybe it's well worth it.
Yeah. And we're going to get into talking about that. But before we start anything, I have already interviewed like almost 30 people about these two questions. And since we're getting this in, this is going to drop tomorrow, Friday. This is Thursday night. So this is going to drop on Friday. So we're getting in before the deadline for like what people are going to find out on the banned and restricted list. I need to know, what do you believe should be banned? What do you think Wizards will ban? Eternal Dirtles is proud to be sponsored by Moxfield. Moxfield is the best Magic the Gathering deck building website on the internet. You can create, share, and find decks from Commander to Legacy and even fan-supported formats like Pre-Modern and Old School. You can see all of our decks on our Moxfield. Follow the links below to stay tuned.
See, I'm not a good one for this because I've pretty much went on record already in a few places on this and in the MTG Goldfish articles. I think they should just start with Brief and then see how the format shakes up, whether, it kind of be, you look at the next possible tier of offenders, which at this point may be Psychic Frog up the Beanstalk, possibly the One Ring, kind of these overpowered card advantage engines. But I think to really get a sense of where the metagame truly is, you first kind of need to get rid of Brief and see how the dust settles and go.
It's a measured scientific approach. Yeah,
I know. I'm from the
I think that's
Brian Cook school of data and less. As much as I think community sentiment needs to be a part of the conversation, I think there's a lot more to it than that. I know. So yeah, it's a very measured.
Yeah,
logical take. Unfortunately,
that was
so not as exciting.
That was the hardest part of interviewing everybody. Is like my natural inclination as an interviewer, because I had myself on the like producer side of this program that I used to record people with, right? And so they can hear me, but like the recording can't hear me. And I so badly, several times when someone had a take, I wanted to be like, let me follow up with a question. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm here to do. I'm just here to get the answer. So it was very like, it was one of those things where like, I wanted to be like, well, no, like extrapolate on that more, like, but I have that chance now with you to be like, okay, what is your take from that? And the scientific approach is actually an interesting take.
Yeah. I don't think anything more than what needs to be banned is what should be banned. I think
that's fair.
The more possibilities we have, the better the format will be, and the more options players have is a good thing.
Yeah.
So
what do you think they will ban though? Then
I think they'll just start with Brief.
Yeah, you think they'll start with Brief?
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's
my thought about what I think they will ban has evolved in the last couple of days. I think that them taking this long to make this decision means that they have to do something more to maintain some level of credibility. Whether or not they believe that too will, be kind of up in the air to see. But I don't know. We'll find out in like 96 hours, right? Like,
yeah, I think there'll probably be multiple bans across formats.
Oh yeah.
I don't anticipate anything additionally in Legacy if they do. I mean, I was joking with someone today. Maybe they watched BCDL all weekend. Are like, oh,
Nadu.
Jeskai Control. Jeskai Control won one event and was in the finals of another. Format's fine.
Yeah.
There was only one blue black reanimator between the two events in the top 8. Format's good. No
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah, it just turns out like everyone was like there was a large gentleman's agreement to not be that guy, right? Like I feel like that there was some amount of that going on too. But let's
There
talk
was
more
definitely
about
that vibe in the room.
yeah, right? Like people were just like I don't want to be that bad person. Not that like look, play to win, obviously. But I like at my local there's like a soft like gentleman's agreement that like we just don't do that here. You know, like it's kind of funny. But let's talk about the event itself. You know, let's start with the most basic of questions. How far out do you plan these events? Like when you start from you're like, okay, I'm going to run this event. I'm starting with the beginnings of the planning. You know, like obviously you do one every year, but like you start with the beginnings of getting the ball rolling to like the event happening, right? When does that start?
Yeah, so it's kind of two different timelines for each event, whether I'm looking at a community event, which is like the 64 player cap, usually about a 2K. I found you want somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks lead time for players. So that means I probably want to start planning, 3 months in advance. It's like kind of the sweet spot for opens. It's when I did BrewDog the past few years. Um, for anyone that's married, it's like planning your wedding all over again. You're booking, um, and they do a lot of weddings, so you're looking at least a year to 18 months out. And for those that have never looked into a convention centers are like that, or some of the more popular ones, 2 years
Yeah,
out. And then if you are always wondering why are Magic events on terrible weekends or holiday weekends, it's
it's
because they have
cheaper.
less vacancy and it's
Yeah.
cheaper. So that's the answer right there.
Dad's against legacy events on Father's Day.
Yeah. Although that might work out because you're like, honey, this is my day.
Yeah.
Although somehow I don't think my wife would
No,
buy
no, no,
that one.
no.
But so for this one, this was unique in a lot of ways. So I try to really take feedback and use it because I think at my scale I can be very agile
Yeah.
and quickly implement that feedback. And the feedback I got mainly were two things. One, see if you can lower the price because before it was 150, but that was 5 to 6K in prizes and food, and we're at a first class venue with alcohol. And the other was, can you make it a 2-day event so it kind of makes it more worthwhile to travel?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
wasn't
Huge.
really possible at BrewDog because you have to have X amount of spend per day on food. So it
Yeah.
would essentially, if I wanted to do 2 days at BrewDog, it would have been probably at a minimum 250
Yeah.
entry.
So
So
yeah, that pulls at the other string, right?
yeah, for to do both days, and that's a lot plus travel. Plus, if you stay there, the rooms are not cheap. I mean, it's fantastic, but it's
Yeah,
not
it's like a
cheap.
wedding venue. You know, if you're staying at like a nice bed and breakfast, it costs a lot of money, right?
Yeah, it was very much like a this is probably one of or your only big magic trips of the year kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I thought doing it at an LGS or a different venue would help me achieve those two goals, and it did. So I was kind of looking for spaces, and our one of our main partners, the Warp Gate in Columbus, they kind of saw what I was looking at doing, and I usually kind of try to put my plans out there in advance on some level. One, to keep me accountable, and two,
Yeah.
to kind of give people a heads up so they can plan. And they found out what I was doing. They're like, hey, we got to tell you something. I'm like, is this good? Is this bad? Like, what are we talking about here? And they're like, well, we're moving to a much bigger space.
Oh,
And the space actually happened to be right around the corner from our house in Columbus. So of course the shop I work with opens a giant, shiny, gigantic new store, you know, 2 months
amazing.
after I leave Columbus. So,
Oh,
but they're like, hey, you know, we've got this space and this is kind of the square footage. This is what we're thinking about doing with it. You know, would you consider doing it here? And it can be kind of like, you know, part of our grand opening to the public. And, you know, one of the first things we do, and I'm like, you know, if you think you can have it done and you're telling me this, I believe you, I'm willing to take the ride. And I know you wouldn't tell me something if you didn't believe you could deliver on that promise. So I did. So I agreed to a venue that essentially wasn't built right out the gate. Yeah, it was
that can be dicey.
for those in real estate. Just like it wasn't even a white box. Yeah, well, a white
Yeah.
box
If
is
you
like
know anything about like construction, real estate, or contracting, you know that's a dicey proposition.
yeah, literal nothing. So that was that. I mean, they had a long lead time. They hadn't even finished their lease negotiation yet, and I kind of gave them a little like, hey, these are things, negotiating things I would discuss because of my background. I was kind of able to help them out.
Oh, good.
But you know, they finally got that done. It took longer than they thought, and construction went well. So they signed the lease. I saw it before I left, and it was they were just in. They were basically at white box, but like the floor hadn't been done. They had like electrical was still in process. There was still quite a bit of work to do, but you know, again, I'm like, if you think you can do it, I believe in you. I walked through it. Like I can, you know, envision it with you. And they're also applying for WPN Premium. So for those that aren't familiar with that, there are a whole lot of restrictions on the quality. I think items that really enhance the quality of the store, like tables, for instance. You can't have folding tables or chairs. Um, and just kind of a whole host of other things that you would find at, frankly, nicer stores. Like think places like Mox Boarding House,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So, you know, I was like, let's do it. Then the other kind of going from there, I wasn't going to be there. So planning, this is, you know, over the years, people have been like, hey, we really want you to do an event outside Columbus. I never thought my first event where I would do it in another state where I'm not would be back in Columbus. So not being able to go there, put eyes on things, help set up, you know, really do things kind of from afar was new for BCDL. I mean, I had done it in the work context in terms of kind of remote management, but
yeah,
you know, this is a little more near and dear to me, I suppose, and a little more hands-on. You know, part of it is on some level me relenting some control on some level for what it has been in the past. So, you know, that's kind of a whole host of personal
yeah, and your
issues.
name's on the line, so you know you gotta, you know, there's a worry there to just make sure that everything works properly. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate that the Warpgate staff is fantastic, and over the years, I've kind of learned I can teach anyone anything except to care.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
they
Yeah, yeah.
really do care. And we have two guys that stepped up and were like, hey, because I had put it out there to the Columbus group, like, hey, this is what happened. I got this opportunity. It requires me to move to Texas. I have to take this job. Like, it's just kind of a career changing move. And I put it out there. It's like, hey, do any of you guys want to start running events here? Like, I'll support you. Like, we'll figure it out. And two of the guys, Kerry Banyas and Matt Strand, were like, yeah, we'll do it. Let's keep it rolling. So that's what I did, kind of, help them and kind of teach them. And, though the next event they run, I won't be there. I don't think, and it'll be kind of their show. So doing that and trying to help Warpgate build a streaming room, because they're like, hey, you've done this before. What things do you think we should have? What do so trying to kind of guide them on that. And before I left Columbus, I actually bought basically like a second set of streaming gear for the guys in Ohio. And then I took the rest of it with me to Texas. And I was like, hey, if you can work something out with the shop, put it in the Warpgate streaming room, and you won't have to set it up every time, which is a huge time saver.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, and then now correct me if I'm wrong. You had Joe Dyer doing commentary. Was he in that room doing the commentary there?
Yeah. So I posted a picture of it online. You can see the streaming room, and then on the other side of that wall is the office for the shop, and Adam and Joe were just at the computer, on the other side of the wall.
That's awesome.
And it's pretty soundproof. Yeah, and we just put a banner behind them for kind of when they were on camera. And yeah, I mean, they did a great job. We're working on getting the VODs up. That's another thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, Carrie's handling that, and we'll get that up on YouTube as soon as it's ready.
I tried something similar in a friend's railroad apartment in Brooklyn, where we had them in the kitchen and we were in the bedroom. So the kitchen was so the like living room was in between us, and we had a speaker blasting like music in the middle room so that we could like make that work. But yeah, that's way more professional than what I had going. It was a fun time, but still, like, it's like, it's a lot to do. It's a lot of setup, and it's a lot of technical know-how to get it to even work.
Yeah, when you're one of the benefits of having nothing there is you can customize it to what you need.
Yep.
And they had the foresight to think of these things, and I was happy to be involved with it and could really help them where they had questions, because they'll take some of what I've done and use it for their future events, whether it be streaming RCQs or whatever. And I think that's awesome. Like, hell yeah. Like, that's, what's good for you guys is good for BCDL, and,
it's good for Legacy in general. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that remote management problem was new. And then we kind of start getting to almost the event itself. So the fall calendar is pretty packed, probably as people have
kind of 5 noticed. Events. Yeah.
Yeah. So finding a weekend was a challenge. Being in Houston, and if I'm there in Columbus, that means my wife is here with our 4-year-old and our 18-month-old by herself, which, as any parent will tell you, with young kids, it's rough. Like, they're just at tough ages. I mean, no matter how much you love them,
how much wife equity have you gathered in that amount of time? I mean, come on, right?
I mean, she was in Columbus the weekend before I was.
Okay.
And then she's going on a girls' trip.
Nice. So you got the trade-off. That's what's important.
Yeah. So
one of the things I always used to talk about when Nate was on the show was wife equity, like getting getting those like weekends in, but like also figuring out a way to like, keep your spouse happy. You don't want to just run off every other weekend to play Magic. You gotta put time in. You gotta make things even. Good work-life balance, as it were, where work is Magic cards.
Yeah, we both make an effort to give each other the space to do.
That's great.
Like the hobbies, or like, she has some things she does, and to be able to enjoy those things, because I'll be real, you need that break from parenting sometimes. Like you just like,
I mean, if everyone listening to this learns nothing more than like the attention and time to like put in like good a good relationship like situation, like that's the best part of this podcast, right? Like that to me, like understanding like you need to put in effort and time with the other people in your life that share responsibilities with you. If you take nothing else away from this particular episode, please take that.
Yeah, and one of the like, I try to, like I said, take feedback, and one of the feedback I'd gotten over the years was, oh, do you think you can get an artist or someone to come? And that's kind of sort of, so I've talked to Jeff Lubenstein over the years, the artist, and we tried to do it last year, but we couldn't make it work. I think the weekend we had that Brewdog had available, there was some other larger Magic event, and he was like, this is just more lucrative for me. I'm like, yeah, you do you, man. Like I totally get it. And Kai Sawatari from Everyday Eternal and I had talked. I want to say getting him here was over a year in the making. From the time we had talked about it to kind of getting serious about it, and then it just happened to line up where we were doing BCDL, and then the next weekend was NRG in Madison. This coming weekend will be, this, when this drops, that it kind of made sense that he could get 2 events.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And, really get his name out there more to the American audience, and, just not just legacy. So that kind of lined up perfectly. And, from his perspective, he's coming over from Germany. He's never met me. Like, what does he know about this guy I've, with a chicken logo that, I don't know, a lot of people maybe have never even seen my face, or maybe just read it in a MTG Goldfish article. Like, what am I coming over to? Like, who is this strange dude picking me up from the airport?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of work that goes into the back end that you don't see on event days. And that work is kind of what makes the event day go smooth. So talking to him, getting him here was, those conversations started, a long time ago. And then we kind of get into some of the regular stuff I do for events. So I do kind of a financial plan, like a projection for each event I've done, the smaller ones, the big ones. This one, I'll do them in the future. If you're a TO out there, I will teach you to do something, even quick and dirty. You don't need anything more than Excel and just some experience. I'll tell you what you need to know for the most part. But so I kind of have that. I kind of have a baseline of how many people I think we can expect. So you kind of come to a break even with, like, these are the amount of people I need to break even, and anything beyond that. And you can kind of see that in the way I do pricing on event pages through topdeck.gg, which is, they've been fantastic. Side shout out for Top
Friend
Deck.
of the cast.
But you'll see, like, 56 players, pricing scales up to this, at 65, it's that. You can kind of like follow my break evens on that line. So, last year, so the first year for BC Open, we had approximately 70 some. Last year we had 100. So I'm like, okay, I'll set my break evens around like low 70s for the open, and then, somewhere in the high 40s, 50s for the Sunday event, which is smaller 64 cap event. I've done tons of those at this point. Will be good. Easy enough. Probably won't lose money. Well, when I think the thing I've tried to drill, and if you're a WotC staff and you're listening to this, the thing I've tried to drill more than anything is that Legacy is now a community-driven format. Player sentiment matters. If people don't want to play the format, they won't. They just will go do something else, because most of us are.
It'll be there when you
30s.
come back to it. Is what I think a lot of people have figured out.
Yeah, I mean, so people will slog through a garbage, standard, modern Pioneer format because of the incentives of, getting to the Pro Tour,
yeah.
or Worlds, or like selling a dream is a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah.
I'm not selling a dream. I'm selling chicken dip and dual lands.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like I'm selling
better than dreams, in my opinion. But yeah, I get you. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, more people are gonna leave happier from chicken dip than the RCQs. I'll tell you that much.
You're definitely gonna walk away with at least one of those two things: chicken dip or dual lands. Not everyone's gonna walk away with a Pro Tour dream, right?
Yeah, I mean, what? What's the RC, like top 64 out of some thousand make it?
Yeah.
I mean, do the math. I mean, your odds aren't good.
Yeah, no, of course.
And that's without taking into account skill level. But so I get those, and we start getting closer to the event. Like, one of the kind of metrics I've looked at and have been pretty consistent is you kind of have half your signups at the beginning, and then you have the other half like 72 hours before the event.
Yeah.
So like sense. When Al Central, just for background for the listeners, they had a 5K about a month ago scheduled and canceled it because I want to say they had like 6 or 7 signups, like very low amount, and they realized that they're like, this is untenable, so they canceled it. And I don't want anyone to think I'm bashing them. I think they made the right call.
They made a calculated choice for sure.
Yeah, my napkin math tells me they 100% made the right call.
Yeah,
and they got it right. Whereas I'm crazier than that, and I started getting questions like, "Hey, are you gonna cancel? Like, what do you think?" Like, because people are sick of grief. I mean, I think WotC really did a disservice in establishing this framework that was too soon to make changes, and then saying it was too soon to make changes, and then when they had an opportunity to make changes, ignoring the people within their colleagues.
We had a whole episode
and then not doing
where we were like, "Are you serious? You didn't listen to the guy in the room?"
If that's my coworker, so probably what ends up happening, right? Like, you have, the group making this decision. You have 1, maybe 2 people that are like, "Hey, you should do this thing," and 1, 2, 3 tops that are like, "Nah, kick rocks. We admit you know more than us about this thing, but we're not going to listen to you. Your opinion does not matter."
So upsetting. Your opinion so upsetting. It's like, obviously, hindsight's 2020 here. Obviously, they know now. Assuming that on Monday that they banned grief, they know they made a incorrect decision about that, right? Nobody sees consequences for that, and I don't necessarily want anybody to get fired or anything, but like, it's just wild that like they're just like, whatever, like nobody in the room goes like, okay, maybe that guy doesn't get to be in charge of the decision anymore. I don't know. I spent a whole, like 50 minutes with Phil where we were just like kvetching about this. So I don't want to go too deep into it, but yeah, I mean, and it affects us, you know?
And, from a TO standpoint, like most of, and I did a guest spotlight article for Joe Dyer. He was, I don't know, he's on vacation. He was out, he was doing something. I was like, hey, can I write an article for you? Like just to put out some
TrotCon,
content.
probably.
Yeah. He had something going on. And he was like, yeah, sure. Go for it. Send me what you got. If we can print it, if it's not terrible, we'll print it.
Yeah.
So, and it was basically my complaining about grief and what they did. And part of it was me, like I just kind of scoured the internet looking for any kind of event coming, whether they be, I started with, I guess, non-major event. I guess they're all non-major events other than Eternal Weekend and Watsy's Eyes, looking at 5Ks or 5K area and then everything less. And within the, let's say essentially 8 weeks, 6 weeks, pretty short amount of time, there were quite a few events, between BCDL, Al Central, Secret Lair, and, a few others there. I listed them all in the article, but like you're setting up these people to fail, essentially.
Yeah. It's terrible
because of your inaction and not doing anything. And that was a real big issue kind of leading up to it because people were sick. I mean, the signups were low. I mean, up until about 72 hours before, I had like 30 some signups for the Open. Like I was staring at like 3, not quite, not somewhere in the ballpark of $4,000 loss. Yeah, so it ended up being okay. Like my loss was sub 1,000 at this point. Like after it was
still,
all said
it's
and
a
done.
loss, and that sucks.
Yeah.
That shouldn't have been the case. A healthy format would have brought more people out,
and it would have. I mean, there were a lot of people, and that was a lot of the feedback I got. Because BCDL isn't so big that I don't know a lot of the people that play often. So I just kind of reach out to them like, hey, what are you doing? What you got going on? You coming? Like, I'm off the format, man. I'm just kind of waiting for the BNR, and
well, like
they say they didn't want to create a lame duck format, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like so full disclosure, like that's on the list for next year for me and Phil. Like the big like we always talk about on like what our big events are for the year. This year, the one event we wanted to add was LobsterCon. We wanted to make sure we got to LobsterCon. It had been a long time. I've been involved with the pre-modern community for a long time, and I wanted to get to LobsterCon. Next year, like the event we want to add to the schedule is both of us getting to Chicken Dip. Like we were bummed that we couldn't go this time just because like I had like a rebuilding year, we'll call it. And Phil's like got his thing. He had like a he's out like traveling for writing articles for bodybuilding contests and stuff like he does. And we just the timeline didn't align. But like the thing we want for next year is to like we want to be at the event. Like that was our big thing was like every year we want to get to a point where we add like because we're now getting enough Patreon supporters that we can like fund part of our travel through that stuff. We want to make sure that we get out to these events and cover them live, like be at the place to be like, hey, like here's what's going on, whether or not we've been playing them. Like we just want to make sure we're giving people like you who are making these events a platform. Like beyond like, hey, I went on Twitter and posted this, or Facebook events and so. Like I know you have several other ways you get the word out, but like we're not nothing. We like to make sure that we promote these sort of things, and just the way even the way things fell through. Like I this is on me. I should have reached out to you weeks ago to be like, hey, let's promote Buffalo Chicken Dip, but like the stars didn't align. But one of the things I really want to do is like make sure we get out and help promote that next year because it's a cultural event for the format for the community that I think that it behooves all of us to do well and promote.
Yeah, I mean, life happens.
Yeah.
There's certainly like not people can't make every one of them. Like that's just kind of the reality, and I understand that. And very shortly, there's going to be a day where I can't even make one, like coming up. So, no, I totally get that, and I appreciate the support that all of the content creators in the legacy space have given me over the years, whether it's just a shout out or having me on or coming to the events. I mean, we had several podcast hosts come. We had Michael Mapson from Dark Depths podcast.
Turns out he did okay in the event.
Yeah, he did okay. Spoiler, he won the Sunday event with Bant Nadu, but his losses on the weekend were to me. Just putting that out there.
Not financially. You're not saying he paid you to get into the tournament and then he lost.
No. Yeah, he was on Bant Nadu and I was on Grixis Tempo, and I got the better of him in our matches. But I think he still won in the end, so it worked out for him. He rebounded well. We had the Legacy Small Talk podcast. The three of them, Michael Reed, Romario Nito, and Jared McCall, come out. And then Kai Sawatari from Everyday Eternal.
Of course, yeah.
So, we definitely got some love. And a smaller podcast, Pre-Game Effect. We had Ian come out. I saw his podcast, his other podcast host, Dom, come out. But I think he was more interested in the casino than BCDL. So,
I mean, hey. It's like that in Philly too, man. That's where I win all my money when SEGCon comes around. I'm at the craps table most of the time.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of blackjack, so like I can't.
Yeah.
But just getting the space out there and not giving it just to me, but give it to people like Sargent in Philly. His
Sarge
Presents series, and then we had the Eternal Kitchen crew. Curran, I can't pronounce your last name. It's Delani, something like that. And Parker Southwick from the Eternal Kitchen, and they're starting to run events out there. Like that's awesome. Yeah, giving those small TOs some space too. I think it's great. So I think I speak for all of us when I say we really do appreciate that time. We got derailed. I was somewhere. On the.
So there was a net like $1,000 loss. You were saying.
Yeah. So it was
to not bury the lead. Yeah.
Yeah. That was sadly that was a win. I want to read back an email I got from someone. Yeah. And I'm not going to put this person's name out, and I have no ill will towards this person. They did what was good for them, and they just didn't want to play. And I would rather have them, ask for a refund in advance.
Yeah, and you were previewing a bit of this to me before the cast. So I think look, if Wizards is listening, this is a perfect chance for them to like learn something, right?
Yeah, I was going back and forth about this because I almost put this out before the event, and but just
then that's tagged asking chaos, like
WotC
giving
staff
people more of a reason to jump on that bandwagon, right?
Yeah, and that was ultimately why I didn't, because at the end of the day, I'm trying to sell spots, so it's kind of against my interest to be like, hey, this person's jumping off ship. Yeah. But someone was like, you should just email it to Blake Rasmussen and just be like, yo, man, like
do better.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have been more diplomatic than I've been like, hey, just I don't expect you to respond to me, but this is real feedback I'm getting for people and what's going on. It's having a real effect.
Blake's not the guy who makes those decisions. So when I say do better, I'm not talking to him specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I could have sent it to like Andrew Brown or someone, whatever. Like
Blake's just the guy who has to go on stream once a week and eat everyone's crap,
unfortunately, he's the messenger that people gang up on.
Yeah, I like him a lot, but I feel so bad for him sometimes when there was that Planeswalker deck thing where like everyone was just like, eating him alive, and it looked like he was gonna like laser eye the guy that was talking to.
You can see like sometimes he's doing
like,
his job.
Yeah, he's trying. He's trying.
Yeah,
I
whether
get it. Yeah.
or not he agrees with what is coming out of his mouth, it's
Yep.
you
Yeah.
know.
No, God love.
I'm in the corporate
God
world.
love.
I get it.
You're being from Ohio myself. Bless his heart.
So here's this email. This person wrote to me. Good afternoon. I hope you're doing well. I was wondering if it would be possible to withdraw and get a refund for entry from the upcoming BCL Legacy Open 3 and BCL 16. Nothing went wrong from a tournament organizer standpoint or anything like that, but I truly do not want to play in a tournament that is likely to be dominated by grief decks. I was hoping that it would be banned during the last ban announcement, and then it wasn't. Was hoping that the community response would push Wizards to emergency ban it, but it doesn't seem likely at this point either. I completely understand if this is not a possibility, and will suck it up and play if needed, but I figured it didn't hurt to ask. Thanks for reading.
And you refunded that person?
Yeah, I refunded them.
Yeah,
instantly. I was like, my response was, "Hey, I'll refund you. Thank you for all your support. I appreciate it. And
it's just good customer service.
We'll see you out the next one."
Yeah,
but when you see something like that, like that's just people are pissed.
Yeah,
like just no other way to put it. And that was kind of like the dark cloud hanging over the event, which was a challenge that we had never really dealt with, because most TOs are one big loss away from being done. I mean, there's plenty of TOs that have won 1, 2, 3 events and now no longer exist. So I think my kind of forward thinking in terms of the financials and has been what's helped us sustain BCDL for as long as we have. Like the community interest is ultimately the deciding factor on success. But seeing things like this, like I can't force people to play. Like,
yeah, no, that's wild.
I can only put the best product I can out there with the resources I have, and see if it's something people respond to. And there are some things I can't beat. Like if people aren't going to have fun, they're not going to play. If they don't think they're going to have fun, like
no amount of buffalo sauce is gonna turn the format around.
Yeah, and for the record, I think very much the community was at a place where they're like, "Hey, we're sick of this. We're just not going to play it." And that was the attitude I got from a lot of people in the room. I mean, there were people that did play it, and no one was hassling them or anything, or they weren't welcomed or anything. Like
I mean, I joke about the villain, but like shot. No one's gonna fault anybody for trying to win an event. Like those are legal cards. You can play them.
But personally, like I just get to play less and less Magic, just life, kids, moving, whatever. Like when I get to play,
this is growing up, as Blink-182 once said.
Yeah, like I wanna enjoy it and I wanna love it. And I played my deck. I played the deck I love. If you know me, I'm a diehard Grixis Delver person, and I played a Grixis tempo list, and I loved it. I had a great time. Not just from the organizing standpoint, but just from like playing there and interacting with people and just hanging out. So when you see something like this, like it's pretty resonating.
Yeah. And that's that's sort of also the level of like service you get from somebody who's in the community. Like you can't expect a couple weeks before a refund from the TO when they're not like when they're just like some big brand. Like this is a community event, and you're dealing with the community, and you feel that.
Yeah, and part of having so few signups beforehand, like I didn't have enough money to pay for the prizes that I had put up. So what did I do? I pulled them out of my binder.
They came out of that's rough, dude. And that's
like,
the rough part is like you're not doing this for like to get rich. You know, you're doing this to create a community. You're doing this to hang out and play the game and to create a space for people. And it's rough when like, you know, it comes out of your pocket. You know, that's the absolute worst. You know,
and I'm not looking for sympathy or
no.
you know, anything. Like it was totally my choice. Like I always know that is a possibility thing that can happen, and I'm fortunate that, you know, a loss
You're not pulling a cube con on anybody.
Yeah, I will pay out of my own pocket. I will hand you cards out of I'll hand you duels out of my deck before I let someone walk away unpaid.
Yeah.
Like or not get a prize that I posted. Like unacceptable. Like I will take you to the ATM with me. Let's draw cash out of my own account. Like before I do that. Like, full stop. So yeah, that was, you know, making sure I kind of like, well, what do I have the budget for? What can I do? And, you know, like I said, your signups, either 72 hours leading up to it, you get a lot of signups just because Magic players are last minute people. It's like, I guess I'll hope and see where we land. And ended up being enough money I could recoup some of that. I mean, it's still a loss, but, you know, I want to buy back the duels that I gave out as prizes. So, you know, that was new, you know, just kind of like staring it down like, hey, I've got this problem. What do I do?
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm fortunate enough to be in a place where I could do that, but, you know, I could see a lot of other people getting in trouble. And you've kind of seen that over the years with other TOs where they have.
Yeah. Especially during the pandemic. I remember, like, Rob, I'm not even sure that this wasn't an interaction I had with you. I know that there was an event in the Midwest during the pandemic that got canceled, like as the pandemic was like kind of becoming a more real thing. Was that you?
No, I think you're talking about the Missouri MTG event.
That was it. Yeah. Because I had to reach out. Like at some point, I was like, "This ain't happening," and I was like, "Hey, like if I can get my money back, you know," it was basically that email, you know, like minus like, "Hey, this format blows right now," you know. But like, you know, I remember reaching out and just being like, "Hey, like I just, you know," and that I feel like maybe that's one of the. I haven't seen anything from that person since then, you know, like.
And to be fair, I don't think, and we're talking about Jeremy Aronson for the record, who is nothing I've seen out of him has been anything other than stand up.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
I think he's delivered on.
Like, yeah, I'm just going to hook it up.
Every promise he's made, at least as far as I know. I mean, I got my money back. I know there were a bunch of people that were willing to donate their entries, and he donated it to a good cause. And you know, I think he handled an unprecedented situation in the best possible way you could. But not every TO does that. For every TO that does that, you hear something about like TCG Con, where for those unfamiliar with it, a judge, the TO didn't have the prizes to cover, and they asked the judge to put up their own personal cards, and the judge did. And then the judge was never repaid. Yeah, it's just like,
that's terrible, man.
Yeah.
And then there's like that debacle with CubeCon that happened, like, you know, that's a whole thing. I heard about that sort of from the inside, just to, you know, the nature of being a guy in this space, you know. But so I want to go back to what. Let me just put it like this: there will be a buffalo chicken dip next year.
Yeah. No,
okay. I was like, we're getting to a dark place.
Done.
Yeah.
I don't want it to seem like it was all gloom and doom. I mean, for all this chaos and kind of everything going on behind that I'm dealing with, and keep in mind, like I had some personal things going on. Like, so we moved from Ohio in June. We're here in Texas for 3 days. my son splits his head open, like on a coffee table at our Airbnb, because we don't even
Oh.
have our stuff at this point. Like we have whatever I brought,
Yeah.
like in our suitcases, and my wife is on her way, like just getting to Texas with our animals. So she's got like, we have like nothing. Splits his head open. Oh, it gets much worse. Splits his head open. We go to the ER. 3 days, then we're there. We get into our house, everything moving across the country, whatever. We put him into school. He just like doesn't respond. He just did not like this school. I mean, I've never seen my kid just the sheer relief from like when I go to pick him up at school. Like you just anyone that's a parent kind of knows what I'm talking about. Like when something's just not right with your kid and it's just not mixing. Like okay, fine. We pull him out. So he's home for the summer with us and we're trying to work. Like I've just, kind of started this new job. My wife's trying to work. There's complete chaos literally every day. Then my 4-year-old gets sick. And we're just like, oh, whatever. It's not a big deal. He gets progressively worse and progressively worse. Taken to the pediatrician, still getting worse. And back and forth. He's at the ER 2 more times. So like 3 times when we get here in this like 4-week span. And he has pneumonia. It's like this bacteria called mycoplasma covering his lungs. And he just was not himself. Like he just couldn't move, couldn't function. And he's getting worse. And despite being on meds, we're like freaking out. So we take him to the children's hospital. They do chest x-rays. We get him straightened up. He starts taking on meds and starts progressing and getting better. And, the meds are working. So then he gets me sick. So then I get pneumonia.
Oh, God.
Yeah, because like he's 4, and he's 6. So I'm carrying him.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're right in his face all the time.
He is right in my face and just straight coughing in my face.
Yeah, of course.
And I get pneumonia. So I'm like dead. Like I had never been that sick. Like I've had like I got COVID at some point, like whatever. Like this was like I could barely drive myself to the doctor, like around the corner.
Oof.
Because we're in Texas. I didn't have a doctor. I had to find one.
Yeah.
So we deal with that. Trying to get help at home because we're still trying to work. We had we hired a couple part-time nannies, just like, please entertain our kids so we can do.
Please
our
get
jobs.
in there. Yeah.
Like not get fired. We had 2 different ones. They quit.
Oh man.
Because we didn't have a daycare yet or anything. Yeah. So man, it was
rough.
A mess.
Jeez.
Yeah. And then the hurricane hits. So we're in Houston, Texas, and Hurricane Burrow hits. So we're without power for 6 days. So
jeez, dude.
Man, it's been a rough summer, like just kind of transitioning and trying to get BCDL together. I mean,
I'm surprised it ran. Like that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Like you would have been completely excused to just be like, "Hey, look, I got life stuff happening. Please forgive me, but I'm not running this year." But you did. You just ran it anyhow.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a personal responsibility to like. I think I've delivered on every promise I've made for BCDL, and I hope other people feel that way, and plan to continue to do that in the future. And when people are like, like people like you or Mario or whatever, like when you come to, you're like, oh, I can't wait to come. This is gonna be awesome. Like blah blah blah. I'm like I gotta come through. Like we gotta figure this out. Like whatever it is, like the show must go on. Like quitting is not an option, kind of thing. So it was stressful, but we got there. And I tell people a lot of the time, like oh, like I just have to set up the hamster wheel and let everyone climb on, and the event kind of runs itself. And the event typically goes smooth because I'm able to, I have great people around me to do that. I mean, a shout out to our judge Garrison Folk, who's an L3 and pretty respected judge in the judge community, and legacy Death Shadow player himself. Judged for the weekend, and really ran a smooth event. I mean, we were on time. I mean, we had the Warp Gate staff, which are great, and then we had the coverage team doing what they needed to do, and Joe and Adam have done it several times, and just kind of setting up these pieces to do the things that kind of need to be done on event day lets me just kind of as long as the car is staying on the track, we're good, and it lets me play. I mean, the kind of one benefit I allow myself is I want to play in the event.
Enjoy your events, of course.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the same thing with the guys that do Lobster Con and DFB. And,
I mean, that's what you're having these community events to be in the community. I think that's totally fair.
Yeah, and I get I've gotten questions about that all the time, like ranging from, "Oh, is this an unfair advantage?" to "How do you focus on an event?"
Yeah, how do you focus is the real question. Unfair advantage. I used to back in the days of the ELO, when you technically were not supposed to be playing if you were a judge in the tournament. My store had me playing, and that was stressful enough because we were sort of breaking rules. But also like just running a 16-man event and being in that as like a 12, as a like 19-year-old was like super stressful. I can't imagine doing it. It's like, like doing this huge event, you're running stuff, like all the other logistics are at your responsibility. Whereas like, I'm just like a guy in between rounds, I go and get a haircut and like there are 15 guys banging on the window of the haircut place being like, "Hey, the next round should be starting."
Yeah. I mean, it's, you kind of put people in a position to succeed and kind of let them do their thing and work with people you trust, and
basic project management.
Things tend to work out. Like I'm fortunate in my professional career, I've managed, have that experience and can apply it here, and it lets me be free. I mean, I pay the entry and do everything just like everyone else, but I get to play it, and it's definitely a disadvantage, like trying to I mean, I think I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing and just kind of shutting the world out when I'm in a game, but that's not all the time. I mean,
I had to ring people up.
There's one time where I just straight tilted off after something that happened like outside of a match from an event standpoint. I don't want to call anyone out or call anything out, but like it kind of takes a lot for me to be annoyed with you. That if that, like, you probably can hear it in my voice, I'm just like a very calm, even keeled person. So for these people to annoy me to this level, like I expect a certain professional standard working with me, and when people don't live up to that, it's very frustrating.
It's rough.
And that's kind of what had happened in this instance. So
can't win them all, right?
Right. I mean, like over the years, we've been really fortunate. We've had very few incidents, and I think that speaks to the character of our community, and just kind of be the change. And like it's people play. I call it like serious REL after Team Serious, like play to win, play to have fun. Don't be an asshole.
Yeah, of course.
And it really works out. And I think there's a maturity level that the average legacy player has that maybe
one of the reasons why I play this format.
20-some-year-old grinding modern thinking they're going to be the next Reed Duke doesn't have the wisdom, at that point in their life yet. So
it's a Sustain to Reed Duke's name to make it think that they would be the next Reed Duke based on the way some of them behave. But I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I just gotta consider him, one of the best Magic players and a great dude. If you ever have the chance to talk to him,
yeah,
just as a human being. So yeah, he was kind of the low hanging fruit because we were talking about
the
upcoming
he's going to be on the show on Monday. Yeah. So yeah, of course.
so that was the first name that popped into my head.
So yeah, well, Rob, it's really insightful to get this information from you and to like kind of see through the like the TO's perspective how these like more community driven events get run and like sort of the risks and the rewards of running these events. So it was awesome to have you on and to just talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's. I've had events where I just like 0-3 scrub out, and maybe I punted or something. I just feel like a complete idiot, and I'm just kind of annoyed. And I look around, I just see everyone having a good time and just talking to people and the vibe, and it just instantly uplifts you. I mean,
I mean, we're here for the gathering, right?
It's really the secret sauce, and that's kind of what was so frustrating about this and WotC's in action with the legacy format was they were kind of killing the vibe.
Like, killing the vibe is I almost want that to be the thumbnail. WotC killed the vibe.
Yeah, I got to give you a tagline for the episode.
All right. Well, anyhow, like I said, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this with us. Like I said, I'm gonna edit this like right now. We're gonna get this up tomorrow morning. So we're running late into the night. But again, it was a blast having you on, and I really appreciate you coming in for this, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and thank you for all that you and Phil do.
Thanks so much, man. All right, everybody. Well, if you enjoyed this episode, you know how it works. Like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. And thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.
Take care.
Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to this channel and do your part to help sustain the legacy content ecosystem. Just subscribing to this channel goes a long way to reminding YouTube that people love and support this format. Now, if you really want to go the extra mile, you should think about supporting us through Patreon. Both the links for subscription and Patreon are right here. And if you're listening on an audio format, you can go to patreon.com/eternaldurdles. Thanks so much for watching.